Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
In the distant future, Earth had become a hub of interstellar travel and trade, a bustling spaceport where species from different corners of the galaxy came to interact, barter, and sometimes clash. Neon signs flickered against the stars, illuminating the worn-out streets filled with humans and otherworldly beings, each with their own story, their own agenda. Among them was Anthony, a mechanic by trade, known for his quick wit and charm. He worked in a small workshop nestled between extravagant shops selling alien technology and food from distant worlds. Today, the air was thick with the smell of barbecued meat from a nearby vendor as Anthony tinkered with a broken hyperdrive engine. "Anthony, you've got a visitor," called his friend Sam, leaning against the doorframe, a crooked smile playing on his lips. Anthony looked up, wiping grease from his hands. "Another crazy bounty hunter? I don't have time for that." He joked, but his tummy nodded with the thought. Bounty hunters often meant bad news. "No, man. This one's different. She's well, you'll see," Sam replied, an air of mischief in his voice. Curiosity piqued. Anthony stepped out of the workshop, and his breath caught in his throat. Standing there was Irina, an otherworldly beauty with luminescent skin that shimmered like the night sky and features that seemed sculpted to perfection. She emanated both danger and allure, her eyes glinting with a predatory glint. "Are you Anthony?" she asked, her voice smooth like silk yet laced with an edge of authority. "Depends on who's asking," he replied, trying to maintain a facade of confidence, though the fluttering in his chest betrayed his bravado. Irina stepped closer, and the crowd around them seemed to fade into a blur. "I have a job to do, but I need information about a certain target." An ominous weight settled over the moment. Anthony's heart raced. Something about the way she said job sent chills down his spine. "What kind of target?" he asked, narrowing his eyes suspiciously. "Let's just say this target isn't compliant, and he poses a threat to my mission," Irina replied, her eyes scanning his face, attempting to decipher his reactions. "Okay, and what makes you think I would help you? I don't even know your name." A ghost of a smile flickered on her lips. "Irina, assassin. And you're exactly the kind of person who could facilitate my approach." As Anthony listened to her words, a burgeoning mix of dread and intrigue enveloped him. This beautiful assassin held his attention captive, even as every instinct warned him of the danger she represented. He felt trapped between curiosity and caution, not knowing yet how much this encounter would change the course of his life. Here lay the fork of fate, with a choice to either heed the call of adventure or retreat into the mundane safety of his life. Little did he know, the moment Irina stepped into his world, everything would spiral into an unexpected union of paths, filled with thrills, danger, and a connection that neither were prepared for. Irina's presence felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, electrifying the air between them. The neon lights of the port flickered above, casting an otherworldly glow on her skin. Anthony couldn't help but feel an odd pull toward her, a blend of instinctual caution and undeniable attraction. She was an assassin, sent with a purpose, yet there was something about her that felt different, more complex. As they stood there, Anthony scanned her expression. The fierce determination in her eyes told stories of battles fought and won, yet he also noticed hints of conflict. She was an alien from a distant planet, trained in the art of stealth and death, and yet there was a spark of humanity that lingered within her, a flicker that piqued his interest. "You said you're an assassin. Who's your target?" Anthony pressed, reluctant to step deeper into this unfolding chaos. Irina took a breath, her gaze steady on his. "I was sent to eliminate a man named Luca, a mercenary. He's been disrupting trade routes and jeopardizing our interspecies negotiations. But the information I received about you suggests there's more to the story." Anthony's heart raced. The name Luca stirred memories of meeting him once at a bar, where he laughed too loud and bragged too often. It struck Anthony that Luca was not the type to follow orders or consider the greater good. It was likely he was tangled in much deeper trouble than anyone realized. "Why me?" Anthony asked, his voice steady despite his nerves. What's so special about me that you've come all the way to find? Arena's lips curled into a knowing smile. You have information. You're connected, whether you know it or not. Bounty hunters and mercenaries pass through here. You've heard things. Before he could respond, an explosion deafened the streets, sending debris flying from a nearby building. Panic surged through the crowd as people scattered, shouting, a cacophony that drowned out Anthony's thoughts. In an instant, Arena's instincts took over. She grabbed Anthony's arm, pulling him toward an alleyway. We must move now. As they fled into the shadows, Anthony's mind raced. The world was abruptly shifting around him. He was no longer just a mechanic tinkering with engines. He was dragged into the heart of a conflict he barely understood, led by a mesmerizing assassin who had come into his life with the promise of danger. Finding shelter in a cramped alcove, Anthony leaned against the cool walls, gasping from the combination of sprinting and shock. Arena remained poised, her sharp senses alerting her to any potential threats. "Do you have somewhere safe?" she asked, her eyes scanning their surroundings. It's not fancy, but my workshop might be a good place to regroup." She nodded, and they swiftly made their way back, the sounds of chaos fading behind them. Once inside, the door slid shut, locking them away from external threats. Arena let out a breath, tension easing momentarily, but Anthony could see her mind racing, grappling with the duality of her purpose and her will to spare him. This dangerous beauty wasn't just a cold killer. She had emotions and vulnerabilities. He could see the conflict in her vivid eyes when she looked at him. Not just necessity, but something deeper lurking beneath the surface. "Why didn't you just kill me?" Anthony asked. "You had the chance." "I can't kill you," she said, voice low. "I don't know why, but something about you, it makes me hesitate. I'm supposed to be a killer, but I find myself wanting to know you." As the weight of her admission settled in the air between them, an undeniable tension crackled, pulling them closer together. They stood mere inches apart, sharing breath, improbable allies made by a twist of fate. Who knew that an assassin could be so human? Anthony teased lightly, breaking the tension. Arena chuckled softly, and for the first time, Anthony saw her as more than just an assassin. There was a flicker of warmth in her gaze, masking the lethal nature beneath. Perhaps, in this bizarre melding of two worlds, a connection was budding between them. As silence enveloped the workshop, Anthony realized that this encounter could change everything. Not just for him, but for Arena, too. Both Anthony and Arena stood in the dim light of the workshop, the hum of machinery grounding them amid the chaos that had erupted outside. Arena's golden eyes flickered with uncertainty as she processed her mission and the emotions stirring within her. A battle waged in her mind. Even as an experienced assassin, this burgeoning connection with Anthony was unlike anything she'd ever felt before. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," she finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "My orders are clear, but something here, it's different." Anthony crossed his arms, observing her. "You're torn between duty and something else. It happens." He didn't know why he felt compelled to comfort her. Perhaps it was the spark between them, an unspoken bond that grew with each shared glance. "What are you scared of?" "I'm scared of losing myself," Arena replied, her gaze intense. "I was trained to kill, to be cold and unfeeling. But you—" She paused, catching herself as vulnerability threatened to spill forth. "Being near you makes me feel things I shouldn't. I shouldn't care." Anthony sensed her internal struggle and couldn't help but feel drawn to her more fiercely. "You do care, and that's okay. We can figure this out together. I'll help you." She studied him, her expression softening. "You would do that for me? Help an assassin?" Anthony chuckled nervously. "Looks like we're in pretty deep together now. I'm not running from a beautiful assassin just yet." Arena raised an eyebrow, intrigued by his audacity mixed with humor. There was something fearless about him, something that challenged her long-held conclusions about humans. They stood on the precipice of something new, and she didn't want to retreat. The two began to form an alliance, guided by necessity. They had to find Luca, and Anthony's connections in the spaceport would be essential. "Let's start by tracking down information," he suggested, slipping into his mechanical mind, his boots stepping deeper into the role of seeker. "If we can find where Luca is hiding, we can plan accordingly." Arena nodded, her mind shifting into mission mode. "We need discretion. We can't afford to let others know the details of my targets." "Agreed. You can use my terminal," Anthony offered, guiding her to a second workstation pushed against the wall, crammed with tools and tech. He powered it on, watching her work with an air of unexpected grace. With deft fingers, Arena's fingers skimmed the keyboard while searching for intel on Luca. "There is a possibility he'll show up at the cantina nearby. It's a regular haunt for mercenaries." "Then we've got to get there before he vanishes," Anthony replied, feeling a tingle of excitement. This was going to be more adventurous than he had ever anticipated. In those minutes spent gathering information, Anthony was mesmerized by the adeptness with which Arena navigated the digital realms. It wasn't just her skills. It was the quiet intensity in the way she focused, how she seemed to transform into a powerful presence. "There, I found something," she announced, her eyes gleaming as she pulled up a holographic map. "Luca is scheduled to meet someone at the Blue Nebula Cantina tonight." "Perfect. Let's prepare," Anthony said, adrenaline surging at the thought of venturing into the unknown with this compelling alien assassin. As they rounded up supplies for their operation, they settled into a routine, learning each other's strengths. Arena would handle the stealth and physical confrontations if the need arose, while Anthony would charm any information out of those who might hesitate to share. "Do you always work alone?" Anthony asked as they gathered additional gear, his curiosity getting the best of him. "Most of the time. It's easier that way," Arena admitted, her expression thoughtful. "Survivability comes at the cost of connection." "Connection is risky," Anthony acknowledged, hesitating before adding. "But it can also create unexpected alliances. Like us." A pregnant pause hung in the air as Arena met him with a piercing gaze. "Do you trust me?" The question hung heavy, layered with the implication of their circumstances. "As much as you trust me, I guess," he replied, shrugging lightly. "If I'm being honest, I don't have much reason to believe in assassins, but I see you. I see you trying to break out of the mold." A slight smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. In that moment, she felt the barriers around her heart soften slowly. Anthony was extending the hand of trust while risking his safety. "Let's break the mold together, then," she said, the challenging spirit igniting her confidence. Suddenly, Anthony noticed the small puffs of color blushing her cheeks, and warmth bloomed within him as he thought about the possibilities of their bond. What were the boundaries of an assassin and an ordinary mechanic, if there were any? As they prepared to seek out Luca, the line between enemy and ally began to blur, paving a path into uncharted territory for both. The sun dipped below the horizon as twilight settled over the spaceport. Shadows stretched across the streets, merging with the vibrant glow of neon signs. Anthony and Arena stood outside the Blue Nebula Cantina, the entrance a chaotic blend of patrons from various worlds, each lost in their own stories of adventure, trouble, and desire. "Are you ready for this?" Anthony asked, glancing at her. His heart pounded not just from anticipation of facing danger, but from the electrifying presence of Arena beside him. Arena's gaze didn't waver, focusing intently on the crowd. "We need to blend in. Stay close to me." Together, they pushed through the cantina's doors, enveloped by pulsating music and laughter that echoed off the walls. Anthony's senses were overwhelmed. The energy in the room was infectious, but he remained acutely aware of the mission ahead. His instincts screamed that danger lurked. They approached the bar, firming their resolve. "Let's see if we can gather intel on Luca before confronting him," Anthony suggested. He felt a rush of adrenaline as Arena nodded in agreement. As they positioned themselves by the bar, Arena's keen eyes scanned the crowd until she saw him. Luca, a tall figure with an imposing presence, surrounded by a group of equally dangerous-looking individuals. His reputation as a mercenary wasn't unfounded. He had a reputation for ruthlessness that made Anthony's skin crawl. "There he is," Arena whispered, leaning closer to Anthony. "We need to be careful. He's not alone." Anthony took a deep breath, channeling his nerve. "We approach carefully. I'll distract them while you get a closer look. If things go south, we need an escape plan." Arena nodded, the fire of her resolve igniting as she slid out of their hiding spot. Anthony caught sight of her poised determination, and dread coiled around his heart. He had no way of knowing what danger awaited them, but the weight of the moment was palpable. With each passing second, the tension escalated like a charge before a storm. Anthony sidled up to the group, flashing his most charming smile. "Hey there, I couldn't help but notice the impressive crew you've got here. What's the plan tonight?" Luca turned, his eyes narrowing as he caught sight of Anthony. "Who are you?" he demanded, his tone low and threatening. "I'm just a guy looking for an entertaining night," Anthony replied, feigning casualness. "I've got contacts, you know. I might be able to scratch your back if you scratch mine." Luca regarded him suspiciously, seemingly weighing his words. In the fading light, Arena had slipped away, her form a smooth silhouette that blended with the shadows. Anthony felt a pang of worry, but convinced himself she was trained for this. As Luca's men shifted, their keen gazes locked onto Anthony. It was clear that they weren't fooled by his friendly demeanor. A sense of unease washed over him, like cold water. "Whatever you're selling, we're not interested," one of the men growled, flashing a dangerous smile. "Suit yourself," Anthony replied, an edge creeping into his voice. He needed to buy time. A distraction was key, and he had to buy Arena enough time to gather crucial intel. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the other side of the bar. A brawl broke out, patrons shouting as they scattered. Arena re-emerged, making her way toward Anthony with purpose. "There he is," she shouted over the chaos, her voice steady. It was in that split second that Anthony felt a jolt of adrenaline surge through him. "Now," he yelled, grabbing Arena's hand and pulling her towards Luca before they could be boxed in. Using the commotion as their shield, they maneuvered closer to Luca. "I need to speak with you," Arena demanded, her voice cutting through the noise like a sharp blade. Luca's eyes widened, surprise crossing his features before transforming into malign amusement. "An assassin. How quaint." His laughter echoed through the room, drawing curious eyes. "What's so amusing?" Arena challenged, tension crackling between them. "You invading my turf with a pathetic mechanic, you must be desperate," Luca spat, his bravado spilling out. "Desperate enough to kill you," she hissed, the fury within her roaring to life. In an instant, the world fell into chaos. Luca's men surged forward with a snarl, launching at Anthony and Arena. The cantina transformed into a battleground as patrons darted for cover. "Arena!" Anthony shouted, adrenaline propelling him into action. He reached for the nearest chair, swinging it to block an incoming blow. He had never fought like this before, but with Arena beside him, he felt alive, emboldened. Arena executed flawless defensive moves, her training manifesting in every agile strike. She used her surroundings to her advantage, dodging blows and incapacitating Luca's men one by one. "Keep moving!" Arena barked, pulling Anthony forward as violence erupted around them. With a burst of energy, they fought side by side, weaving effortlessly through chaos. Anthony's heart raced as he realized that he was no longer just a mechanic but part of a team, a fierce alliance forged in the heat of battle. As they maneuvered toward Luca, Anthony felt an overwhelming surge of determination. Together, they would face this danger. Just as they closed in, Luca's snarl echoed over the chaos. "You think you can take me down?" "I don't think," Arena snapped, her voice cool and fierce. "I know." The final confrontation was imminent. As Luca lunged, Anthony and Arena worked in sync, her graceful movements paired with Anthony's ingenuity. In that moment, they were more than just an assassin and a mechanic. They were unified, unstoppable. As they pressed forward in a final, explosive clash, everything hinged on the resolve they had forged amidst the chaos. In that heartbeat of truth, They would break the mold completely. There would be no turning back. The din of the cantina faded, replaced by a heavy silence as the chaos subsided. Luca lay unconscious, bound at their feet, while scattered patrons emerged from their hiding spots, eyes wide with disbelief. The fight had drawn to a close, but the adrenaline still coursed through Anthony and Irina. Did we really just do that? Anthony asked, panting, glancing down at Luca with mixed emotions. Despite the exhilarating thrill of their victory, the weight of violence lingered uncomfortably in the air. Irina stepped closer, her fierce expression softening when their eyes met. We did what we had to do. We stopped the threat. But her unwavering confidence wavered as they acknowledged the aftermath. Let's get out of here before we attract more attention, Anthony suggested, relief flooding him as they slipped into the night, the stars shining brightly overhead. It was a cosmic reminder that their adventure had only just begun. As they walked side by side, the night air crackled with an electric tension. Anthony glanced at Irina, who exuded a striking beauty intertwined with danger. The pulse of excitement mingled with an undeniable chemistry radiating between them. Irina, Anthony began, his voice steady but laced with urgency. We need to talk about what just happened between us. The connection. It's more than just chemistry, isn't it? Irina's gaze burned intensely as she shifted closer to him. No, it isn't. As we fought side by side, I felt something primal awaken inside me. It's a mating connection, Anthony. There's a bond forming, a pull that transcends our individual lives. Surprised yet intrigued, he searched her eyes for clarity. You mean to say that our experience together has created a deeper link? Something that connects us on a biological and emotional level? Yes, Irina affirmed, her voice sultry and resolute. Mating for my kind involves a deep bond, a merging of identities, strengths, and passions. It's about intimacy beyond the physical. It's a sacred union where we become whole with each other. A thrill rushed through Anthony, igniting a desire he hadn't fully acknowledged. I want to explore this with you, he stated, feeling the truth of his words resonating within him. To discover the depths of our intimacy, to undertake this journey together. As if in response, Irina's expression softened further, and the tension between them shifted from intense urgency to something more gentle. I want that too. I want us to deepen our connection, both in the physical and emotional realms. With their hearts racing in unison, Anthony felt the air thicken with expectation as he reached out to cup Irina's face, his thumb brushing against her soft skin. He leaned closer, allowing every shared heartbeat to draw them nearer. Let's embrace this bond, Anthony murmured, his breath mingling with hers. Let's dare to explore each other fully. Our intimacy can create something powerful between us. In this moment, desire flared, weaving around their hearts and bodies like a glowing tapestry. Their lips met again, igniting a fervent blaze that left them breathless. The kiss began gently, but the spark within quickly transformed it into a passionate exploration of longing, their mouths moving in a rhythm that spoke volumes of their deepening connection. Irina pressed herself against him, her body a stunning fusion of strength and softness. He could feel her heart racing against his chest as desire unfurled within him. The mating bond thrummed through the air, urging them to dive deeper into intimacy. With urgency bringing them closer, Anthony wrapped his arms around Irina's waist, grounding himself in her presence. Let's take this further, she whispered, her voice tinged with a sultry edge. Let's explore what it means to mate, to become one in every possible way. The mere mention of mating sent a jolt of intensity through Anthony. He sensed the weight of their connection resonating in every fiber of his being, awakening a yearning for deeper intimacy. Yes, let's, he replied, his voice thick with desire. As they stepped into the workshop, their sanctuary, they surrendered to the urgency of the moment, their hearts in sync with the cosmic rhythm of stars above. Irina's fingers tangled in Anthony's hair as they continued exploring one another, each kiss stirring an insatiable curiosity deep within them. They moved together, a dance wrought with a desire that felt ancient, primal, an unspoken understanding that spoke of the mating instinct buried within their beings. Each touch ignited flames of passion that surged forth, uncontained, as they began to undress the layers that separated them, physically and emotionally. Together, we can merge our bodies, our souls. Arena breathed against his skin, her voice a melody of longing and promise. This is more than physical, it's about new beginnings. If this is what mating feels like, I want to experience it completely, Anthony replied, reveling in the beauty of their connection. I want to know you in every way, to combine everything we are into one. The line between who they were, an assassin and a mechanic, blurred as they embraced the intimacy unfolding before them. They learned each other's bodies like a cherished map, navigating paths that led to shared ecstasy and mutual discovery. With every kiss, caress, and gasp, the mating bond grew stronger. As they explored the depths of intimacy, their connection transcended the physical realm. Anthony lost himself in Arena's essence, feeling her every heartbeat resonate with his own. When their bodies entwined, the world outside fell away, leaving only the raw energy they shared. The realization hit him like a wave. This was more than just passion. It was the forging of a partnership that encompassed trust, vulnerability, and intense pleasure. In becoming one, they fused their souls, committing to face whatever challenges emerged from their union. As dawn approached and light spilled into the workshop, Anthony and Arena lay entwined, bodies still humming with the afterglow of their first mating, a connection that would transcend boundaries, cultures, and the very fabric of their beings. They were no longer just a mechanic and an assassin, but a pair intertwined, two worlds fused into one. Whatever the universe had in store for them next, they would navigate together, armed with love, passion, and the understanding that their bond had only just begun. As the sun rose, casting warm rays through the workshop, Anthony and Arena remained entwined, two hearts beating as one. The night had transformed their bond, and with a newfound understanding, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Arena stirred first, the soft light playing across her features, illuminating the beauty that was both fierce and tender. She watched Anthony as he slept beside her, a sense of peace washing over her. This mechanic had offered her more than just companionship. He had shown her a glimpse of what it meant to truly connect with someone, transcending boundaries. A union that had ignited a spark within her. Anthony opened his eyes to find Arena gazing at him, a smile gracing her lips. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice gravelly with sleep. "Good morning, partner," she replied, and the word hung between them, dense with meaning. They were partners in every sense, fighting side by side, exploring their intimacy, and ready to merge their lives. "Last night was incredible," Anthony said, a glint of awe in his eyes. "I didn't know mating could be so profound. You've changed my life in ways I never expected." "I feel the same way," Arena said, her heart swelling. "Together, we can build something beautiful out there. Our worlds may be different, yet in each other, we have found our strength." Anthony took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their future settle comfortably on their shoulders. "What's next for us?" he asked, curious about the journey they would undertake. "Whatever we choose," Arena replied, her confidence shining through. "But first, we need to ensure that Luca and his associates won't threaten anyone again. I can't let my world and yours become collateral damage in some intergalactic scheme." "Then let's make a plan," Anthony suggested, the flame of determination igniting within him. "I'll help you strategize and put an end to this once and for all." With their resolve firm, they began to gather their gear, prepared to confront the remnants of the chaos they had just escaped. As they strategized, the connection between them radiated warmth that made Anthony feel invincible. They were ready to take on the universe together. As they left the workshop, hand in hand, the vastness of space awaited them. The stars glimmered above, twinkling like promises of adventures yet to come. They knew they would face countless dangers, but with their connection grounding them, they also held a love that faced the unknown. Arena squeezed his hand, the gesture a reminder that they had forged a bond stronger than any threat. "No matter what lies ahead, I'll protect you as fiercely as I fight for my own," she declared, her voice steady. "And I'll be right beside you," Anthony affirmed, determination coursing through him. "We'll face every challenge together. That's a promise." As they stepped forward, their intertwined destinies illuminated by the glow of a new day, they were ready to face the looming uncertainty of the universe. Their stories had only just begun, filled with love, intimacy, and the limitless potential woven into their mating bond. Together, they would push boundaries, overcome obstacles, and forge a legacy that transcended the stars, united in heart and spirit.